The silver chains burned Elara's wrists as her stepmother dragged her to the pack's border at the midnight forest, bearing witness to the cruelest betrayal. She was being banished for a power she'd hidden all her life, sold to slavers by the very family who should have protected her, never knowing that in 3 moons' time, she would stand before the Alpha King himself as his chosen Luna Queen. Please, Vivienne, I'll never use my abilities again. I swear on my mother's grave. Elara's voice cracked as she stumbled over gnarled roots, her bare feet bleeding from the harsh forest floor. Her stepmother's laugh was cold as winter frost. Your mother's grave? You mean the witch who cursed our family by birthing you? Vivienne Ashwood yanked the chains harder, causing Elara to fall to her knees. 20 years we've hidden your abomination, fed you, sheltered you, and this is how you repay us? By nearly exposing us all? Behind them, Elara's stepsisters, Ravenna and Thalia, followed with torchlight dancing across their cruel smiles. They'd always resented her, the daughter of their father's first mate, the girl whose strange silver eyes marked her as different, dangerous. It was an accident, Elara whispered, remembering the moment everything changed. She'd been cornered by rogues while gathering herbs in the forest. In her terror, her carefully suppressed gift had exploded outward, silver light erupting from her palms, sending the attackers flying. But Ravenna had seen everything and run straight to Vivienne with the tale. An accident that could have brought the hunters to our door, Thalia sneered, kicking dirt at Elara's face. Do you know what they do to spirit walkers? What they do to packs that harbor them? Spirit walker, the forbidden name for wolves born with the ancient gift of soul magic, the ability to see the true nature of others, to heal or harm with a touch, to walk between the physical and spiritual realms. It was a power that had been hunted to near extinction, feared by human and wolf alike. They reached the territory border where 3 figures waited in the shadows, slavers from the Bloodfang Syndicate, known for trafficking rare wolves to fighting pits and worse. Their leader, a scarred woman called Vex, counted gold coins into Vivienne's eager palm. 50 gold marks, as agreed, Vex said, her voice like gravel. Though she's scrawnier than promised. Sure, she's got the gift. See for yourself. Vivienne gestured to Elara's eyes, which flickered silver in the moonlight despite her exhaustion. Pure spirit walker blood. The last of the Moonvale line, though she doesn't know it. Elara's head snapped up. What did you say about my bloodline? Nothing you need to concern yourself with anymore. Vivienne turned away, but not before Elara caught something in her expression, fear mixed with greed. Take her far from here. I don't care what you do with her, as long as she never returns to Shadowmere Pack. Classed 4. As the slavers approached with iron collars designed to suppress wolf abilities, Elara made a desperate choice. She let them believe she was beaten, broken, allowing them to fasten the collar around her neck. But deep inside, she pulled her power into the tiniest spark, hiding it so deeply that even she could barely sense it. One more thing, Vivienne called out as the slavers prepared to leave. His inquiry about unusual wolves in our territory makes sure she disappears completely. If the Alpha King's scouts come asking questions, she never existed. The Alpha King. Even in her despair, Elara felt a flutter of curiosity. Fenris Nightfall, the legendary ruler of the Northern Territories, who united 12 packs under his reign. They said he could sense lies with a touch, that he was searching for something or someone across all the packs. As the slaver's wagon rolled away into the night, Elara looked back one last time at the only home she'd ever known. Ravenna and Thalia were already turning away, eager to return to their warm beds. But Vivienne stood watching, her face a mask of cold satisfaction. Your true self will destroy you, her stepmother called out. Just like it destroyed your mother. But as Elara felt the wagon wheels carry her into the unknown darkness, a strange certainty filled her heart. Her stepfamily thought they were sending her to her doom, but perhaps they were setting her on a path toward her destiny. Her mother had always told her in dreams that spirit walkers were not meant to hide forever, they were meant to change the world. She would survive whatever came next. She would hide her true self among the lowest of the low. And someday, somehow, she would discover why the Alpha King was searching for unusual wolves and what her bloodline truly meant. The chains around her wrists burned, but deeper still burned a flame of defiance that would not be extinguished. The slave wagon rolled through mud and misery for 3 days before reaching the Bloodfang Syndicate's compound, a fortress of despair carved into the crimson cliffs. Elara huddled with dozens of other captives, each wearing the same iron collars that suppressed their wolf abilities, turning proud shifters into helpless prey. Processing time, Vex announced, cracking her whip against the wagon's bars. Sort yourselves by worth. Fighters to the left, laborers to the right, and special merchandise. Her scarred face turned to Elara. You come with me. Elara kept her head down, her silver eyes hidden beneath tangled dark hair. During the journey, she'd learned to make herself invisible, a skill that proved more valuable than any supernatural gift. The other slaves had shared whispered stories of the compound. Wolves forced to fight to the death for entertainment, others sold to noble houses as exotic servants, and the unlucky ones sent to the void mines, where no one survived past a season. Vex led her through iron gates into a section marked premium goods. Here, cells held wolves with unusual traits, a girl with pure white fur even in human form, a boy whose eyes changed color with his emotions, twins who shared thoughts across any distance. All valuable, all doomed. Spirit Walker goes in the special hold, Vex commanded her subordinate, a hulking man called Crusher. The buyer arrives at sunset. Buyer? Elara dared to whisper. Vex's smile was all teeth. Someone very interested in your particular talent. Paid triple our asking price. Sight unseen. Just needed confirmation you were the real thing. The special hold turned out to be a stone chamber, lined with silver every surface, designed to cause maximum pain to any wolf who touched it. Elara was shoved inside, her skin immediately burning where it met the walls. She curled into the smallest possible ball in the center of the floor, trying to touch nothing. Hours passed in agony before she heard voices approaching. Through the barred window, she caught fragments of conversation that made her blood freeze. Confirmed Spirit Walker bloodline, just as your intelligence suggested, Lord Grimshaw. Excellent. The Alpha King's investigation grows troublesome. Having a Spirit Walker under my control will prove useful. Gade? Elara recognized that name. Lord Grimshaw, King Fenris's own advisor, trusted with the realm's greatest secrets. Why would he be buying enslaved wolves in secret? There is one complication, Vex continued. She's untrained. Her power is wild, suppressed. It will take time to break her properly. Time I don't have. The King's mystics are close to uncovering the truth about the assassination attempt. I need her operational within the month. Assassination attempt. Elara pressed closer to the bars, ignoring the silver's burn. Then might I suggest the Bone Forest trials? Nothing breaks a wolf faster than surviving that. If she has true Spirit Walker blood, she'll either emerge controllable or dead. Either way, your problem is solved. Arrange it. I want her transported tonight. A commotion erupted outside. Shouts, the clash of steel, the howling of freed wolves. The compound was under attack. Royal Guards! Someone screamed. The Alpha King's warriors have found us. Lord Grimshaw cursed viciously. Impossible. I made certain our tracks were covered. Through her cell window, Elara saw organized chaos warriors in midnight blue cutting through the slavers' defenses with ruthless efficiency. At their head rode a figure that made her heart stop, a man whose presence commanded absolute authority, whose very movements spoke of controlled lethal power. The Alpha King himself had come. "Burn everything," Grimshaw hissed to Vex. "No evidence, especially not the Spirit Walker." But Vex was already running, abandoning her premium merchandise to save her own skin. Grimshaw drew a silver blade, turning toward Elara's cell with murder in his eyes. "Can't have you talking, little wolf? The king trusts me above all others. That trust is worth more than your cursed bloodline." He unlocked the cell, blade raised to strike. Elara scrambled backward, her power stirring despite the collar's suppression. In that moment of mortal terror, she made a choice that would change everything. Instead of fighting, she reached out with her gift not to harm, but to project. She sent a pulse of pure truth into the spiritual realm, a beacon that only another spiritually sensitive wolf could detect. It was the last thing Grimshaw expected. The effect was immediate. Somewhere in the chaos outside, the Alpha King's head snapped toward their location, his eyes flashing gold with recognition. "Impossible," Grimshaw breathed, realizing what she'd done. "The collar should prevent—" "You forgot something," Elara said, finding her voice at last. "Spirit walkers were hunted to extinction because our power comes from somewhere deeper than our wolves. It comes from our souls. And souls can't be collared." The door exploded inward before Grimshaw could strike. The Alpha King stood there, magnificent and terrible, his presence filling the small chamber like a storm given form. His eyes, ancient gold shot through with silver, fixed on Grimshaw, with devastating understanding. "Explain yourself, Marcus," King Fenris commanded, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Explain why my most trusted advisor is standing in a slaver's cell with a blade aimed at a spirit walker's heart." Grimshaw's face cycled through emotions: fear, calculation, desperate cunning. "My king, I was infiltrating this compound on your behalf. This girl, she's dangerous. A rogue spirit walker who lies." The word fell like an executioner's axe. "I can smell them on you like rot, pus. Just as I've been sensing them for months, growing stronger each time you reported another dead end in our search." The king's gaze shifted to Elara, and she felt the full weight of his attention, like a physical force. But beneath the power, she sensed something else: recognition, as if he'd been searching for her specifically without knowing her face. "What's your name, little wolf?" "Elara," she whispered. "Elara Moonvale." Something flashed in the king's eyes. "Moonvale. Of course. Preci. The bloodline I've been seeking, hidden in plain sight." He turned back to Grimshaw. "Take him. He'll answer for his betrayal before the council." As guards dragged the protesting lord away, King Fenris approached Elara carefully, as if she might flee. This close, she could see beyond his legendary status to the man beneath, younger than she'd expected, perhaps only a decade older than her own 20 years. With a face marked by duty and determination. "The collar," he said softly. "May I?" She nodded, and his fingers brushed her neck as he expertly dismantled the hated device. The moment it fell away, her power rushed back like a tide, and with it came a vision that stole her breath. She saw herself standing beside this king, crowned in moonlight, her gift no longer hidden but celebrated. She saw truth revealed and justice served. She saw a future where spirit walkers walked free and proud. "You saw it too," the king said quietly, and she realized he'd shared the vision. "My grandmother was a spirit walker." Before she died, she spoke of a prophecy, a lost daughter of Moonvale, who would help restore the balance between our kinds. I've been searching for you for 3 years. Most werewolf stories began with power and dominance. I'm nobody, Elara protested. Just an orphan with a dangerous gift. No. His voice carried absolute certainty. You're the key to everything. And if you're willing, I have a proposition that could change both our fates. As he helped her from the silver-lined cell, Elara realized her stepfamily's betrayal hadn't been her ending. It had been her beginning. The chains were gone, but the choice before her was no less binding. She could run, hide her gift once more, try to disappear into obscurity, or she could take the hand of the Alpha King and step into a destiny she'd never imagined. In the distance, wolves howled their freedom as the compound burned, and Elara made her choice. The royal palace of Nightfall stood like a mountain carved from midnight marble and moonstone, its spires piercing the clouds above the ancient city of Lumenheart. Elara pressed her face to the carriage window, overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of what she'd agreed to. 3 days ago, she'd been a slave. Now, she was. What exactly? Your cover story? King Fenris said from across the carriage, his voice carefully neutral. You're a healer from the Eastern Territories, brought to court to assist with a mysterious illness affecting the noble houses. Your spirit walker abilities must remain hidden until we know who else was involved in Grimshaw's conspiracy. And I'm supposed to just pretend I don't have powers that your entire kingdom fears. For now, his golden eyes held hers. There are those at court who would see you dead simply for what you are. Grimshaw wasn't working alone. The carriage rolled through gates that thrummed with ancient protection magic, and Elara felt her gift respond, recognizing power far older than the kingdom itself. Guards in midnight blue saluted as they passed, but she caught the way their eyes lingered on her simple traveling clothes, the questions already forming. Inside the palace, the opulence was suffocating. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow fragments across marble floors polished to mirror perfection. Tapestries depicting the royal bloodline's victories covered walls that seemed to breathe with accumulated power. Courtiers glided through the halls like jeweled predators, their whispered conversations stopping whenever the king passed. Your Majesty, a woman materialized from the shadows, her beauty as sharp as a blade. We weren't expecting you back so soon. And, with a guest, Lady Seraphina. The king's tone could have frozen flame. This is Elara Ashfall, the healer I spoke of. She'll be staying in the Moonrise Tower. Seraphina's pale eyes dissected Elara with surgical precision. The Moonrise Tower? How unusual. That's been sealed since your grandmother's time. Then it's perfect for someone who needs solitude to work. He turned to Elara. Lady Seraphina oversees the court's domestic arrangements. She'll ensure you have everything you need. Aft. The dismissal was clear, but Seraphina lingered. The Council of Lords is convening tonight. They're concerned about Lord Grimshaw's sudden arrest. Questions are being asked. Then they can ask them tonight. Now, if you'll excuse us, Seraphina's curtsy was perfect, but Elara caught the flash of calculation in her eyes before she glided away. That one would be trouble. The Moonrise Tower stood apart from the main palace, connected by a single bridge that spanned a chasm filled with mist. As they crossed, Elara felt the air change, becoming charged with dormant magic that made her gift sing. Your grandmother lived here? She asked. Died here. His voice carried old pain. She was the last acknowledged spirit walker in the royal line. After her death, my grandfather had it sealed. He feared what her power had attracted. The tower's interior took Elara's breath away. Unlike the palace's ostentatious display, this space hummed with quiet power. Moonstone veins ran through the walls, Bookshelves held ancient texts, and crystals hung in windows to catch and split light into spectrums visible only to those with the sight. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "It's yours." At her startled look, he clarified, "While you're here, my grandmother would have wanted another spirit walker to use her sanctuary. Why are you trusting me?" The question burst out before she could stop it. "You don't know me. I could be anyone." "Could you?" He moved to a window overlooking the city. "When you sent that pulse of truth in the compound, I didn't just sense your power. I felt your essence, who you truly are, beneath the fear and pain. Spirit walkers can't hide their nature from each other." "But you're not a spirit walker." "No, but my grandmother made sure I could recognize one. She knew this day would come." He turned back to her. "There are things happening in this kingdom, Elara. Disappearances, corrupted magic, noble houses falling to mysterious illnesses. Grimshaw was just one piece of a larger conspiracy." "Grimshaw. And you think I can help?" "I think you're the only one who can. Spirit walkers see truth, even when it's carefully hidden. But first, you need to survive court." His expression grew grim. "Tonight's council meeting will be your first test. They'll want to meet the new healer, assess if you're a threat." "What do I tell them?" "The truth." Carefully edited. "You're from a small eastern pack, trained by hedge witches, brought here because traditional healers have failed. Let them underestimate you." A knock interrupted them. A young woman entered, carrying an elaborate court dress of deep purple silk embroidered with silver threads. Her eyes widened when she saw Elara, and she dropped into a hasty curtsy. "Your pardon, Majesty. Lady Seraphina sent this for the healer." Fenris examined the dress with narrowed eyes. Purple and silver, the colors of a royal advisor. How thoughtful of her. His tone suggested it was anything but. "Thank you, Mira. Please tell Lady Seraphina that Miss Ashfall will choose her own attire." After the servant left, Elara touched the silk. "What's wrong with it?" "It's a trap. Those colors would mark you as claiming a status you haven't earned. You'd be challenged before the night ended." He moved to a wardrobe she hadn't noticed. "My grandmother's clothes are still here. She was about your size." Inside hung dresses of midnight blue and silver, simpler than court fashion but carrying an elegance that transcended trends. Elara selected one that felt right, dark blue, with constellation patterns that seemed to shift in the light. "Perfect," Fenris said softly. "You look like you belong here." But as Elara stared at her reflection, she wondered if belonging was the problem. She'd hidden her true self for so long, she wasn't sure who she really was anymore. And tonight, she'd have to convince a room full of suspicious nobles that she was just a simple healer while the most dangerous secret in the kingdom burned in her veins. "One more thing," Fenris said, producing a delicate silver chain. "Wear this. It's not a suppressor, it's a shield. It'll make your power harder to detect by those who might be searching." As he fastened it around her neck, his fingers brushed her skin, and she felt that spark again, the connection that had flared between them in her vision. He felt it too. She could see it in the way his hands lingered, the way his breath caught. "Your Majesty." "Fenris. When we're alone, just Fenris." Pride Fenris, she tested the name. "What happens if they discover what I am tonight?" "Then we fight." His eyes held hers. "But I don't think it'll come to that. You've been hiding your whole life, Elara. You're stronger than you know." As the sun set over Lumenheart, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold, Elara prepared to enter the most dangerous arena she'd ever faced. Not a fighting pit or a slave market, but a throne room filled with wolves, who smiled while sharpening their knives. The girl who'd been banished as worthless was about to walk among those who ruled the kingdom. And somehow, she had to convince them she was nothing more than what she appeared, while the Alpha King, who'd saved her, watched for traitors among his own court. The game was beginning, and Elara was playing for stakes she was only beginning to understand. The council chamber reeked of ambition and fear, masked by expensive perfumes. 13 of the most powerful nobles in the kingdom sat around a crescent-shaped table, their eyes tracking Elara like predators sizing up prey. She stood in the center of their scrutiny, fighting every instinct that screamed at her to run. "So," Lord Draven Ironhold drawled, his gray beard doing nothing to soften his sharp features, "this is the miraculous healer who'll solve our delicate problem." "Miss Ashfall comes highly recommended," King Fenris said from his throne, his tone deceptively mild. "The Eastern territories have different approaches to healing that might succeed where our methods have failed." "Different," Lady Seraphina echoed, her smile holding too many teeth. "How refreshing. Tell us, Miss Ashfall, what exactly makes your method so special?" Elara felt her power stir beneath the shield Fenris had given her, responding to the woman's barely veiled hostility. She forced it down, drawing on years of practice hiding from her stepfamily. "I study the connection between spirit and flesh, my lords and ladies. Often, illnesses that resist traditional healing have roots in spiritual imbalance." Spirit. Lord Wraith, youngest of the council at barely 30, leaned forward with interest. "You speak of souls and essence. That sounds dangerously close to forbidden practices. All healing touches the spirit." Elara replied carefully. "Even your pack healers use the mate bond to strengthen their work. I simply approach it from a different angle." "Show us," Lady Seraphina commanded. "Lord Draven has suffered from persistent pain since a hunting accident. Demonstrate these Eastern methods." "A test, and not a subtle one." Elara glanced at Fenris, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. She approached Lord Draven, whose eyes glittered with suspicion and something else, pain, carefully hidden but constant. "May I?" She held out her hands. He extended his arm reluctantly. The moment her fingers touched his wrist, her gift surged, showing her more than she wanted to see. The hunting accident had been no accident. Poison on an arrowhead, delivered by someone he trusted. The toxin had lodged in his spiritual essence, causing physical pain no ordinary healer could touch. But she saw more. Images flashed through the connection. Lord Draven meeting with Grimshaw in secret, documents exchanged, worried conversations about the king's investigation into missing wolves. Not a conspirator, she realized, but another of Grimshaw's victims, blackmailed into silence. "Interesting," she murmured, pressing specific points along his arm. She couldn't remove the poison that would reveal her true nature, but she could ease its grip slightly. "The energy is blocked here, and here." Quote, "You've been treating the symptom, not the source." She pulled back, and Draven flexed his arm with obvious surprise. "The pain, it's lessened. A temporary relief only. True healing would require multiple sessions and absolute trust." She met his eyes meaningfully. "Pain, born of betrayal, runs deep." Understanding flashed across his weathered features. He knew she'd seen something, but not how much or how. "Fascinating," Lord Wraith said, but his tone suggested suspicion rather than approval. "Such insight from such a young healer. One might almost think you had supernatural assistance." Before Elara could respond, the chamber doors burst open. A guard stumbled in, his uniform torn and bloodied, his eyes wild with terror. "Your Majesty, the Northern Tower Lady Valdris is dead." Chaos erupted. Lady Valdris had been one of the kingdom's most powerful nobles, her family controlling the crystal mines that powered half the realm's defenses. Her death, murder, from the guard's appearance would send shockwaves through every alliance. "Secure the tower," Fenris commanded, rising from his throne. "No one enters or leaves. Lord Captain, gather your investigation team." "Kalan, power." "Sire," the guard gasped. "There's more. We found this pinned to her body." He held out a black rose, its petals seeming to absorb light. Several council members recoiled, and Elara felt the temperature in the room drop. Quote, "The Shadow Court," Lady Seraphina breathed. "They haven't moved in a generation." "Because they were supposedly extinct," Lord Draven said grimly. "My grandfather helped hunt the last of them." 1. Fenris's expression was carved from stone. "Council dismissed. We'll reconvene when we know more." His eyes found Elara. "Miss Ashfall, your healing skills may be needed. Come with me." Pract. They moved through corridors, now filled with armed guards and panicking courtiers. As they climbed the northern tower's spiral stairs, Fenris spoke quietly. The Shadow Court were Spirit Walker hunters from the old days. They believed supernatural gifts were a corruption to be purged. "If they've truly returned, then I'm in danger." "We're all in danger. But yes, you especially." They reached the tower's top room, where controlled chaos reigned. Royal investigators catalogued evidence while healers examined the body. What Elara saw made her gift scream in recognition. Lady Valdris lay peacefully on her bed, no visible wounds, but her essence, her spirit had been ripped away, leaving only an empty shell. It was a death only a corrupted spirit walker could inflict. "Fenris," she whispered urgently. "This wasn't the Shadow Court." "What?" "Look with your inner sight. The spiritual signature, it's inverted. The Shadow Court were hunters, but this was done by one of us." A spirit walker turned dark. His eyes widened as he processed the implications. A rogue spirit walker, killing nobles while leaving Shadow Court calling cards. It was a perfect frame. Who would suspect the victims when everyone feared the hunters? "Your Majesty," Lord Captain Thorne approached. "We found something else. Lady Valdris's private study has been ransacked, her genealogy records specifically." "Genealogy?" Fenris frowned. "Why would—" He stopped, understanding dawning. She was investigating bloodlines, looking for something specific. Or someone, Elara thought, remembering her stepmother's strange comment about the Moonvale line. How many nobles were secretly searching for hidden spirit walker descendants? "Captain, I want every noble's genealogy record secured immediately. And double the palace guard. If the Shadow Court has returned—" "They haven't." A new voice interrupted. Lord Wraith stood in the doorway, his young face unusually grave. "Because the Shadow Court never left. They've been here all along, hiding in plain sight, waiting for their moment." "That's a serious accusation," Fenris said dangerously. "Is it?" Wraith stepped forward. "Ask yourself, Your Majesty, how did Grimshaw hide his activities so long? Who helped him falsify reports? Who benefits most from spirit walkers being feared and hunted? Kine. You're suggesting members of my own council are Shadow Court?" "I'm suggesting," Wraith said carefully, "that your new healer might want to be very careful about revealing any unusual abilities. And that your Majesty might want to question why Lady Valdris was murdered the very night Miss Ashfall was presented to the council." The implication hung in the air like a blade. Someone had killed Lady Valdris to send a message. "We know what you are, and we're coming. Double her guard." Fenris ordered Captain Thorne. "The Moonrise Tower is to be warded with everything we have." As they descended the stairs, Elara's mind raced. A corrupted spirit walker, the Shadow Court infiltrating the nobility, and her own bloodline somehow at the center of it all. She'd thought hiding among servants was dangerous. This was like dancing on a sword's edge while blindfolded. There's something else, she told Fenris once they were alone. Lord Draven, he's not a conspirator, he's being blackmailed, poison in his system. Someone's using it as leverage. You saw all that from touching him? Pies. I see too much sometimes. She met his gaze. That's why my stepfamily feared me. Not just because I'm a spirit walker, but because I'm a truth seer. Lies unravel in my presence. Then you're even more valuable than I thought. His hand found hers, and in exponentially more danger. As night settled over the palace, Elara stood at her tower window, watching guards patrol the bridges and walls. Somewhere out there, a corrupted spirit walker was hunting nobles. The shadow court was moving in the darkness, and she was caught in the center. Her true nature, a secret that could save the kingdom, or see her burned as a witch. The game had changed. Now she wasn't just hiding from those who feared her gift. She was being hunted by those who wanted to corrupt it. And the only person she could trust was a king whose own court was riddled with traitors. Tomorrow, she would have to face the council again, maintain her facade while a killer stalked the halls. But tonight, she pulled power into her core and began preparing for a different kind of war. Because if someone wanted the last truth seer of Moonvale, they would have to come through the Alpha King to get her. And something told her that was exactly what they were planning. The abandoned observatory beneath the palace had been forgotten by all but the oldest servants. Dust motes danced in shafts of moonlight, filtering through cracked glass as Elara descended the hidden stairs, following the cryptic note that had appeared under her door. Those who see truth are not alone. Midnight. Come alone. Trust the shadows. It could be a trap. Probably was a trap. But 3 more nobles had died in the past week, all with their spirits torn away, all leaving behind genealogy research that traced back centuries. The official investigation was stalled, the council paralyzed by suspicion, and Fenris growing more isolated as paranoia gripped the court. She needed allies, even dangerous ones. The observatory's main chamber took her breath away. Once. It had been magnificent, a domed ceiling painted with constellations, telescopes positioned to track celestial movements, charts mapping the intersection of earthly and spiritual realms. Now cobwebs draped everything like mourning veils. You came. Elara spun toward the voice, her hand going to the concealed blade at her hip. A figure emerged from the shadows, Lord Wraith, but not the polished courtier she knew. His fine clothes were replaced by practical leathers, his carefully styled hair hanging loose, and most shocking of all, his eyes glowed with soft silver light. You're a spirit walker, she breathed. Quarter blood only. He smiled ruefully. My great-grandmother's indiscretion with a traveling mystic. Not enough power to be useful, but enough to see what others miss. Like recognizing another of the blood, even through that impressive shield you wear. How many others know? About you? Currently, just me and whoever's hunting us. He gestured to the shadows. About them? Well, why don't you come out and introduce yourselves? More figures materialized from the darkness. Elara's heart jumped as she recognized faces, servants, guards, even minor nobles she'd passed in the halls. A dozen in all, each carrying that subtle otherness she now knew marked spirit walker heritage. We call ourselves the Forgotten, said a woman in healer's robes. Those who carry the blood but lack the full gift. Too weak to be hunted during the purges, too different to ever truly belong. Mira? Elara recognized the servant who'd brought her the purple dress. You're one of them? The girl nodded shyly. 8th generation diluted. I can sense emotions sometimes, nothing more. But Lady Helena here can dreamwalk, and Thomas can speak to plants, and Lord Wraith can see through illusions and sense bloodlines. Wraith finished. Useful talents when compiled, wouldn't you say? Why reveal yourselves to me, Potit? Because, said a gruff voice from the back, and Captain Thorne stepped into the light. We've been protecting each other for generations, waiting for a true spirit walker to return, someone with enough power to change things. Elara's mind reeled. The Lord Captain of the Royal Guard was one of them. How deep did this network run? We know who you really are. Helena, the Dreamwalker, said softly. Elara Moonvale, last of the Truth Seers. Your mother didn't die in childbirth like they told you. She was murdered by the Shadow Court, but not before she hid you with a family who owed her a debt. Quote, the Ashwoods knew? Your stepmother knew. She was your mother's friend once, before jealousy and fear poisoned her heart. Conceal. She was supposed to raise you as her own, train you properly. Instead, she treated me like a servant and sold me to slavers. Bitterness coated Elara's words. Some friend. Fear makes monsters of us all, Thorne said grimly. Which brings us to our current problem. The murders aren't random. Someone's hunting specific bloodlines, looking for something. Wraith produced a roll of documents. These are copies of what the victims were researching. Look at the pattern. Elara studied the genealogies, her gift stirring as she recognized the truth hidden in the bloodlines. They're all connected. Every victim had spirit walker ancestry, diluted but present. The killer's not just hunting randomly, they're following a specific line. The Moonvale line, Mira whispered. Your line. But why kill those with such diluted blood? Because, Elara said slowly, horrible understanding dawning. They're not looking for power. They're looking for something hidden in the bloodline itself. Some secret my ancestors buried in our very essence. Power, the void crown. Helena breathed. It's real. The others exchanged alarmed glances. Thorne cursed under his breath. What's the void crown? Elara demanded. Legend, Wraith said, but his tone suggested otherwise. Supposedly, the first spirit walkers created a weapon to protect themselves from those who would abuse their gifts. A crown that could strip power from the corrupted, imprisoned dark spirits, even seal tears between realms. But the power corrupted its guardians, and they hid it, encoding its location in their bloodlines. In the Moonvale bloodline specifically, Thorne added, your family were the crown's last guardians. If someone's trying to find it by tracing genealogies, they need me. Elara felt ice in her veins. The direct descendant. The murders are meant to flush me out, force me to reveal myself. Or, Helena said quietly, they're eliminating everyone else who might have pieces of the puzzle, leaving only you with the complete map. Footsteps echoed from above. Everyone tensed, hands going to weapons. Peace, called a familiar voice. It's only me. King Fenris descended the stairs, and Elara's heart sank. Had he followed her? Did he know about— Your Majesty, Thorne said calmly, saluting. You're early. You knew? Elara stared at Fenris. You knew about the Forgotten? Who do you think gave them this place to meet? He moved to stand beside her. My grandmother was many things, but subtle wasn't one of them. She made sure I knew about the network, made me swear to protect them. Then why the pretense? Why not tell me? Because I needed to know if you'd seek them out yourself, if you'd trust those society deemed lesser. His eyes held approval. A queen who stands only with the powerful isn't worthy of the crown. I'm not a queen, Elara protested. Not yet, Wraith said with a knowing smile. But we all see how His Majesty looks at you. More importantly, we see how you look at him. Heat flooded her cheeks. But before she could respond, Mira gasped. The stars! Above them, the painted constellations were moving, swirling into new patterns. The abandoned observatory was awakening, responding to the presence of so many spirit walker descendants. By the ancient laws, Helena whispered. It's true. The old magics recognize us. Light pooled in the center of the room, forming shapes, star maps, ley lines, paths of power that crisscrossed the kingdom. And at the center, pulsing like a heartbeat, was the palace itself, the Void Crown, Thorn said grimly. It's not lost. It's here, hidden somewhere in the palace itself. Which means, Fenris concluded, our killer isn't an outsider. There's someone with intimate knowledge of the palace, someone who's been searching from within. Someone on the council, Elara said, certainty filling her. Someone who's been using their position to access records, manipulate investigations, and murder with impunity. Then we have work to do, Wraith said, determination replacing fear on the faces around them. The forgotten have stayed hidden long enough. If someone wants to resurrect the Shadow Court's mission, they'll find we're not as weak as they believe. What do you need from me? Elara asked. Train us, Mira said eagerly. Teach us to use what little gift we have. Some of us have never even tried to develop our abilities. And help us find the crown before the killer does, Thorn added. Your truth-seer abilities might be the key to unlocking the clues your ancestors left. Elara looked around the room at these unlikely allies, servants and lords, guards and healers, all united by shared heritage and common danger. For the first time since her banishment, she felt the stirring of something that might have been hope. All right, she said, but we do this carefully. The killer's watching for any sign of spirit walker activity. We train in secret, investigate quietly, and trust no one outside this room. Agreed, Fenris said, and she felt the weight of his faith in her. The forgotten have hidden long enough. Time to remind the kingdom why spirit walkers were revered before they were feared. As the star map continued to swirl above them, Elara began to plan. She had allies now, not the powerful nobles she'd expected, but something better. People who understood what it meant to hide your true nature, to live in fear of discovery. Together, they would uncover the truth behind the murders. They would find the Void Crown before it fell into corrupt hands. And maybe, just maybe, they would change the kingdom's perception of spirit walkers forever. The abandoned observatory hummed with newfound purpose as the forgotten began their transformation from hidden refugees to secret army. And at their center stood the last truth-seer of Moonvale, no longer alone, no longer helpless. The hunter had become the hunted, and Elara was done being prey. The royal archives stretched beneath the palace like a vast underground city of knowledge. Ancient texts lined shelves that disappeared into shadow, while newer documents filled countless chambers in an ever-expanding maze. Somewhere in this labyrinth lay the truth about the Void Crown's location, and Elara was running out of time to find it. 3 more nobles had died in the past fortnight, their spirits ripped away with increasing violence. The killer was growing desperate, abandoning subtlety. Worse, suspicion was falling on the forgotten. Lord Draven had noticed servants meeting in unusual places. Lady Seraphina questioned why certain guards were reassigned. The noose was tightening. Section 7 should have the sealed records from your grandmother's time, Mira whispered, holding a stolen map of the archives. The young servant had proven invaluable, her emotional sensing, allowing her to navigate palace politics with surprising skill. Powered. Guards change shift in 10 minutes. Captain Thorn added quietly. You'll have maybe an hour before the night archivists arrive. Elara adjusted her hood, hiding her distinctive features. She wore the gray robes of a junior scribe, one of dozens who maintained the vast collection. And you're certain the true records are here? King Aldrich sealed them after Queen Celestia's death, Fenris confirmed. He stood apart from the others, tension radiating from his frame. Even I don't have unrestricted access. Whatever my grandmother knew about the Void Crown, she took steps to hide it. From her own family? Especially from her own family. His jaw tightened. She knew the crown's power would tempt even the best of us. Better to let it remain lost than risk corruption. But someone had already been corrupted. The spiritual signature at each murder scene grew darker, more twisted. Whoever was killing those of Spirit Walker blood was feeding on their essence, growing stronger with each death. I should go with you, Fenris said for the third time. A king sneaking through his own archives would draw attention. Elara replied gently. I can do this. Their eyes met, and she saw everything. He couldn't say aloud the fear of losing her, the weight of sending her into danger, while he remained behind. The growing feelings neither of them had time to properly explore. Quote, Be careful, he said finally. If you're discovered, I know. She touched his hand briefly. I'll find what we need. The journey to the archives required navigating servants' passages and forgotten corridors. Elara's newly honed skills served her well. Weeks of training with the Forgotten had sharpened her natural abilities to a razor's edge. She could sense the spiritual echoes of everyone who'd passed, avoiding routes recently traveled. The archive entrance was warded, but old magic responded to Spirit Walker blood. Her touch made the locks sing open, welcoming her like a long-lost child. Inside, the air tasted of centuries' dust and leather, ink and secrets. Section 7 lay deep in the oldest part of the archives, where crystal lights had long since failed. Elara summoned a small sphere of silver light, her gift illuminating rows of forbidden texts. Here were the records the kingdom wanted, forgotten accounts of the spirit, Walker purges, testimonies of the survivors, and buried among them, Daden Walkers, in the spirit when a one to the spirit, Queen Celestia's personal journals. She found the right shelf and carefully extracted a leather-bound volume marked with the moon phase cipher of her bloodline. Her hands trembled as she opened it, her gift immediately recognizing the spiritual imprint of another truth seer. Entries were cryptic, written in the old language and layered with power that made the words shift and dance. But slowly, a story emerged. The crown calls to our blood, growing stronger each generation. I've hidden the first key where only Starsight can reveal it. The second rests with the heart of the kingdom. The third must be earned through sacrifice. Only when all three unite can the Void Crown wake from its slumber. Further entries revealed more. Marcus grows suspicious. He speaks of restoring the Shadow Court's glory, of purging the kingdom of our kind. I fear what he might do if he knew the crown's location. Better to scatter the keys, trust that a future daughter of Moonvale will prove worthier than I. Marcus, Lord Marcus Grimshaw, not just Fenris's advisor, but Queen Celestia's contemporary. How old was he truly? And if he'd been searching for the crown since Celestia's time? A sound made her freeze. Footsteps in the corridor outside, deliberate and unhurried. The guards had changed early, or worse, someone had followed her. Elara extinguished her light and pressed into the shadows between shelves. The door opened silently, and a figure entered, moving with predatory grace. They summoned their own light, a sickly green glow that made her spirit recoil. Lady Seraphina. But this wasn't the perfectly poised courtier Elara knew. Darkness clung to Seraphina like a second skin, her features sharp with hunger. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that hurt to hear. I know you're here, little truth seer. Your light left traces, breadcrumbs for those who know how to look. Elara held her breath, drawing her power inward until she was nothing but shadow and stillness. Did you find what I've been seeking for months? Seraphina continued, gliding between the shelves. The location of the keys? Poor Celestia thought she was so clever, but she underestimated us. The Shadow Court never died, we evolved. The corrupted spirit walker. Elara's mind raced. Seraphina wasn't just Shadow Court. She was something worse. A spirit walker who'd turned against her own kind, feeding on their essence to fuel dark powers. The nobles I killed were disappointments, Seraphina mused, her fingers trailing along ancient spines. Diluted blood, fragmented memories. But you're the direct line, the living key to everything Celestia hid. She was 3 shelves away. 2. Elara gripped the journal tighter, knowing she couldn't let it fall into Seraphina's hands. Found you. Seraphina rounded the corner, dark power gathering in her hands. But Elara was already moving, her weeks of combat training with Thorn taking over. She rolled under the grasping shadows, came up running. Guards! Seraphina called, and Elara's heart sank as she heard responding footsteps. Not regular guards, these moved with the same wrongness as their mistress. Shadow Court infiltrators. The archive exit was blocked. Elara darted deeper into the maze, Seraphina's laughter echoing behind her. Run, little mouse. These archives have only one entrance. Eventually, you'll have to face me. But Elara had studied the old maps with Mira, memorized passages others had forgotten. Queen Celestia's journal had mentioned Starsight. What if that wasn't metaphorical? She burst into the archive's central chamber, where a massive dome rose overhead. Ancient astronomers had built this place to mirror the heavens, creating windows that aligned with celestial events. And tonight was the lunar convergence, when 3 moons aligned. Moonlight poured through the dome's apertures, creating a pattern on the floor. Elara stepped into the design, feeling it respond to her bloodline. The journal in her hands grew warm, its pages fluttering open to reveal hidden text visible only in convergent light. The first key's location blazed across the page, just as Seraphina entered the chamber. Clever girl. The corrupted spirit walker's beautiful face twisted with hunger. But cleverness won't save you. Shadows lashed out like living things. Elara dodged, but one tendril caught her shoulder, burning through fabric and flesh. Pain flared, but with it came understanding Seraphina's corruption had a price. Each use of dark power weakened her connection to the spiritual realm. You're dying, Elara gasped, seeing the truth written in Seraphina's essence. The murders aren't just about finding the crown. You need spirit walker essence to survive. Survival is for the weak. Seraphina's next attack shattered stone where Elara had stood. I will transcend death itself when the void crown is mine. They fought among the moonbeams and shadows, light against darkness in its purest form. Elara was outmatched in raw power, but she had something Seraphina had sacrificed: connection to the truth of things. She reached out with her gift, not to attack, but to show. She projected the truth of what Seraphina had become, reflected her corrupted essence back at her. For one moment, the lady saw herself as she truly was, a hollow thing, feeding on death, forever hungry, forever dying. Seraphina's scream shattered windows. Her concentration broke, shadows dissipating. Elara ran. She burst from the archives to find chaos above. The Forgotten had mobilized, knowing something had gone wrong. Thorn's guards battled Shadow Court infiltrators, while Mira led servants in evacuating confused nobles. Elara. Fenris appeared beside her, sword already bloody. What happened? Seraphina, she's the killer. She's Shadow Court and corrupted Spirit Walker both. Elara pressed Celestia's journal into his hands. The first key is hidden in the Star Chamber. We need to... Darkness exploded from the archive entrance. Seraphina emerged, her beautiful facade cracking to reveal the monster beneath. You think you've won something? I have allies throughout this palace. The Shadow Court rises tonight. As if on cue, more figures shed their disguises. Guards, servants, even minor nobles Elara had dined with. The Shadow Court hadn't just infiltrated. They'd been hiding in plain sight for generations. Protect the king, Thorn bellowed. But Elara knew this was bigger than protecting one person, place. This was the battle for the kingdom's soul, and it was only beginning. Round up the forgotten, she told Fenris urgently. Get them to safety. I know where the first key is hidden. We're not separating. You're the king. They need you alive. She touched his face, memorizing it in case this was goodbye. Trust me. I know what I'm doing. Before he could stop her, she was running again, drawing Seraphina's attention away from the others. The corrupted Spirit Walker followed, hungry for the power in Elara's blood. The game had changed. The enemy was revealed, and somewhere in the palace, 3 keys waited to unlock a power that could save or damn them all. Elara ran toward destiny, Celestia's words echoing in her mind. The 3rd key must be earned through sacrifice. She was beginning to understand what that meant. The attack came at dawn, swift and merciless. Shadow Court assassins struck throughout the palace simultaneously. Guards fell at their posts, servants screamed in the corridors, and the very walls seemed to bleed darkness. But their primary target was clear, the forgotten, and anyone who'd shown them kindness. Elara watched in horror from the Star Chamber's balcony as smoke rose from the servants' quarters. She'd spent the night searching for the first key, following Queen Celestia's cryptic clues, only to realize too late that she'd been lured away from those who needed her most. Mira. She reached out with her gift, searching for the young servant's spiritual signature. What she found made her blood freeze. Pain, terror. The taste of silver poisoning. She ran, abandoning her search, her feet barely touching the ground as she raced through corridors filled with chaos. Royal guards battled Shadow Court infiltrators, while confused nobles cowered or fled. Some guards turned on their brothers, revealing themselves as traitors. Trust had become a luxury no one could afford. The forgotten safe house was burning. Shadow Court enforcers had barricaded the exits, turning the hidden sanctuary into a death trap. Elara could hear screams from within her allies, her friends, the people who'd trusted her to lead them. Stand aside, she commanded the enforcers. They laughed. The corrupted one wants you alive, Truthseer. The others are expendable. Rage filled her, pure and cleansing. These people hunted spirit walkers like animals, destroyed families, perpetuated centuries of fear and hatred. They'd taken everything from her once. Not again. Power erupted from her core. Not the gentle silver light she usually summoned, but something deeper, older, tinged with moonfire. Her mother's bloodline singing its fury. The enforcers' laughter died as she walked through their shadow barriers like they were mist, her touch alone enough to send them screaming into unconsciousness. Inside, she found devastation. Lord Wraith lay crumpled near the door, his body shielding 2 younger forgotten Palmas. The plant speaker was unconscious, poisoned thorns embedded in his chest. Helena the Dreamwalker fought to maintain a protective barrier, but her strength was failing. And Mira, brave, loyal Mira, stood between a Shadow Court captain and 3 terrified children. A kitchen knife, her only weapon against his silver-blessed sword. Leave them alone, the servant girl shouted, though her hands shook. They're just children. Spirit walkers spawn, the captain corrected coldly. Better to end the contamination young. He raised his blade, and time seemed to slow. Elara reached out desperately, but she was too far away, too late. The sword fell, but not on the children. Mira threw herself forward, taking the blade meant for innocence. Silver parted flesh and spirit alike, a mortal wound that no healing could touch. No. Elara's scream shattered every piece of glass in the building. Power poured from her, raw and uncontrolled. The Shadow Court captain disintegrated, his essence unraveling under the force of her rage. Others fled, but she barely noticed. She caught Mira as she fell, cradling the girl who'd been her first friend in this terrible place. Did I save them? Mira whispered, blood bubbling on her lips. Yes, Elara sobbed. You saved them all. Good. Mira's eyes, always so bright with curiosity, began to dim. Tell the king. Tell him we were brave. Tell him yourself, Elara begged, pouring healing energy into the wound. But silver poisoning was absolute, designed specifically to kill their kind. Please, Mira, stay with me. Can't. The girl managed to smile. But you can. Sense my emotions, right? One last time? Elara opened her gift fully, and what flooded through nearly broke her. Not fear or regret, but overwhelming pride, joy at having mattered, at being part of something greater. Love for the family she'd found among the forgotten. And faith. Absolute faith that Elara would make things right. Change the world? Mira breathed. For all of us who couldn't. The light faded from her eyes. Around them, the forgotten wept for one of their own, a servant girl who died a hero. Elara. Lord Wraith limped over, one arm hanging useless. We need to move. They'll be back with reinforcements. She looked around at the survivors, barely half of those who'd gathered in the observatory. The Shadow Court had struck with surgical precision, knowing exactly where to find them. They'd been betrayed, but by whom? Your Majesty? They turned to find Captain Thorn supporting a wounded King Fenris. The king's left side was soaked with blood, his face pale but determined. Power, the council chamber. Fenris gasped. Lady Seraphina's declaring herself regent. Says I'm compromised by spirit walker influence. Half the nobles are supporting her. A coup, Wraith spat. While we were distracted saving lives, she stole the throne. Where are the keys? Thorn demanded. If she gets the Void Crown. I found the first. Elara pulled a crystal star from her pocket, retrieved from the star chamber moments before the attack. But without the other two. I know where the second is, Fenris interrupted. The heart of the kingdom, it's not a place. It's a person. The ruler's spiritual bond to the land. The key is within me. Which is why she needs you alive. Understanding dawned horribly. She'll try to extract it. Then we stop her, Helena said firmly, though grief lined her face. Mira didn't die for us to give up now. But even as they planned, Elara felt the walls closing in. The palace was compromised. Their allies were dead or scattered. Seraphina held the throne with Shadow Court backing, and public opinion was turning against spirit walkers once again. There's another way, she said quietly. I could surrender power. Absolutely not, Fenris growled. Listen, she needs me alive to find the third key. I can get close, learn her plans. She'll corrupt you. Wraith's voice was flat. Turn you into Watchy Island. That's how the Shadow Court broke spirit walkers during the purges. Twist them until they served willingly. I'm stronger than... That's what they all said. Thorn's expression was haunted. I've seen the records. Even the strongest truth. Seers fell eventually. Then what do you suggest? Elara demanded. Hide while more innocents die? Let her consolidate power? She has the throne, the guards, the nobles' fear. We have wounded children and bitter memories. We have you, Fenris said firmly. The true heir of Moonvale, the one Celestia prophesied would restore the balance. Prophecies didn't save Mira. The words tasted like ash. Prophecies won't stop Seraphina from hunting every spirit walker in the kingdom. A messenger hawk arrived, bearing the royal seal now corrupted with shadow. Thorn read it aloud. By decree of Regent Lady Seraphina Nightshade, all persons of Spirit Walker blood must report for registration within 3 days. Compliance will be met with mercy. Resistance will be met with extinction. The Truth Seer, known as Elara Moonvale, will surrender herself by sunset, or one forgotten will die each hour until she complies. Silence greeted the ultimatum. Outside, they could hear crowds gathering, some calling for Spirit Walker blood, others protesting the regent's harsh measures. The kingdom teetered on the edge of civil war. I have to go, Elara said. It's a trap, everyone said at once. Of course it island, but she's given me something valuable time. 3 days to register means 3 days before the real purge begins. Time for you to get the survivors to safety. Rally our allies. Prepare for what's coming. Elara, Fenris reached for her, but she stepped back. You're the rightful king. They need you to lead them. I'm just a truth seer who couldn't save her friend. She looked at Mira's still form, covered now with Helena's cloak. Sure. But maybe I can save the rest. Before anyone could stop her, she walked out of the safe house. The first forgotten would die at sunset in less than an hour. She wouldn't have more blood on her hands. But as she made her way through the broken palace toward the throne room, one thought burned in her mind. Seraphina had made a mistake. She thought grief would make Elara weak, compliant, broken. She was wrong. The truth seer of Moonvale was done hiding, done running, done watching innocents die for the crime of their blood. If Seraphina wanted her, she could have her. But the corrupted lady would learn what Queen Celestia had known. Truth seers were most dangerous when they had nothing left to lose. The game was ending. Time to flip the board. The throne room reeked of dark magic and fresh blood. Seraphina sat on the stolen throne like a spider in her web, shadows writhing around her in obscene patterns. The corrupted spirit walker had abandoned all pretense of humanity, her beauty now sharp as broken glass, her smile a predator's promise. Elara Moonvale. She purred as guards escorted the truth seer forward. How noble of you to save your fellow abominations. I must say, you're early. The first execution wasn't scheduled for another. She glanced at an ornate clock. 20 minutes. Let them go, Elara said simply. You have me. That's what you wanted. Is it? Seraphina rose, descending the throne steps with unnatural grace. What I want is the void crown. You're merely the key to finding it. Around the room, Shadow Court enforcers stood at attention, but Elara noticed something else. Regular guards who looked uncomfortable. Nobles, whose eyes held doubt rather than certainty. Not everyone supported this coup, but fear kept them silent. The third key requires sacrifice, Elara said, but not the kind you think. Seraphina's eyes gleamed. You found Celestia's journal. Good. Quote, that saves time. She gestured, and guards brought forward 3 forgotten, including young Thomas, still weak from poison. Now, tell me where the third key is, or I start removing fingers. Theirs, not yours. Wouldn't want to damage the merchandise. This was the moment. Elara took a breath, feeling the weight of the crystal star hidden in her sleeve, knowing Fenris carried the second key within his very essence. The third key isn't a thing, she said. It's a choice. The willing sacrifice of a truth seer's power, given freely to protect others. That's why you can't find it. That's why all your murders accomplished nothing. Seraphina's face contorted with rage. Lies. Truth. Elara stepped forward, and even the shadows recoiled from her certainty. I can show you. Let me demonstrate the ritual. Passer. Release the forgotten, and I'll give you what you seek. My lady, one of the Shadow Court captains warned. It could be a trap. Of course it's a trap, Seraphina laughed. But what can one little truth seer do against the might of the Shadow Court? Very well. Release the prisoners. Let them run back to their hole and tell others what happens to those who defy the natural order. The forgotten were pushed toward the doors, Thomas shooting Elara a desperate look. She nodded minutely. Go. Survive, remember. As they fled, she felt marginally lighter. At least some would live. Now, Seraphina commanded, show me this ritual. Elara moved to the center of the throne room, where moonlight streamed through stained glass windows. She began to speak in the old tongue, words Celestia had hidden in her journal, visible only under convergent light. Power gathered around her, silver and pure. I offer my gift freely, she intoned, and gasped as she felt her power begin to flow outward. It hurt, like tearing away pieces of her soul. I offer my sight, my truth, my very essence for the protection of those who cannot protect themselves. The air shimmered, reality bent, and slowly, impossibly, a third crystal materialized, not star-bright like the first, but deep as midnight, pulsing with sacrificial power. Seraphina's eyes went wide with hunger. The third key. At last! She reached for it, but Elara wasn't done. The ritual had shown her something Celestia had hidden even from her journal, the true nature of the Void Crown's protection. There's one more thing, Elara gasped, her power draining rapidly. The keys must be united by one of pure intention, someone who seeks the crown not for power, but for justice. Justice? Seraphina laughed. I am justice. I am cleansing this kingdom of the Spirit Walker plague. Then take it. Elara held out the midnight crystal. Prove your intention is pure. Seraphina snatched the key and screamed. Dark power met sacrificial light, and the contradiction tore through her like lightning. The corrupted Spirit Walker had fed on death and darkness for too long. She couldn't touch something born of willing sacrifice without it burning her to the core. What have you done? Seraphina shrieked, dropping the crystal as her perfect facade cracked further. I've shown the truth. Elara swayed, drained by the ritual. You can't wield the Void Crown. No one corrupted by shadow can. It was designed to destroy creatures like you. Then I'll destroy it. Seraphina lashed out with tendrils of darkness, but the crystal absorbed the attack, growing brighter. I'll destroy you all. That's when the doors burst open. Not with Fenris and the Forgotten as Elara expected, but with someone far more unexpected. Lord Commander Aldrich walked in, alive despite reports of his death fighting bandits months ago, flanked by guards bearing ancient symbols, the true Shadow Court, not Seraphina's corrupted version. Enough, he said quietly, and his presence made even Seraphina pause. You've perverted our sacred mission, Lady Seraphina. The Shadow Court was meant to protect humanity from corrupted spirit walkers, not become them. Aldrich? Seraphina's voice held genuine shock. But you're dead, the report said. A necessary deception. Aldrich's scarred face showed no emotion. I've spent months investigating the corruption within our own ranks. You were so focused on hunting spirit walkers, you never noticed us hunting you. Traitor, Seraphina snarled. No, faithful to our true purpose. He gestured, and his guards moved to surround her. The Shadow Court judges you. Seraphina Nightshade, you have become the very monster we swore to stop. But Seraphina wasn't finished. With a shriek of rage, she shattered the throne room windows, calling on every drop of power she'd stolen. Darkness flooded the room like a living tide. Power. If I cannot have the crown, no one will. I'll tear this palace down stone by stone. The battle erupted on multiple fronts. Aldrich's true Shadow Court fought Seraphina's corrupted followers of Palace. Guards turned on each other, unsure who to trust. And in the center of it all, Elara struggled to protect the Midnight Crystal as her sacrificed power left her increasingly vulnerable. That's when she felt its warmth flooding through her, familiar and strong. Fenris burst through a side entrance, the second key blazing in his chest as he fought his way to her. Together, he said, reaching her side. Whatever happens, we face it together. But even as he spoke, Elara saw the truth written in the spiritual realm. Seraphina was too strong, fed by decades of stolen power. They were losing. The keys, she gasped. We need to unite them. It's the only way. But you said only someone of pure intention. Quote, I know what I said. She met his eyes. Do you trust me? With everything. She pulled out the star crystal, and he pressed his hand to his chest, drawing out the second key, a sphere of golden light that pulsed with the heartbeat of the kingdom. 2 keys in hand, she reached for the third. No! Seraphina realized what they were doing. Passus. The crown is mine by right. I've sacrificed everything for it, power. That's the difference between us, Elara said softly. You sacrificed others, I sacrificed myself. But she brought the 3 keys together. Light exploded through the throne room, not harsh but cleansing, washing away shadows and lies alike. The void crown materialized, not a crown of metal and gems, but a circlet of pure starlight that settled on Elara's brow with the weight of destiny. Power flooded through her, but not the corrupting force Seraphina had sought. This was clarity, understanding, the ability to see all truths and judge with perfect balance. Through the crown's sight, she saw everything, every lie, every hidden truth, every secret in every heart, including the most shocking truth of all. Fenris, she breathed, new knowledge flooding her mind. Your grandmother. She didn't just hide the crown. She bound it to the royal line. You're not just carrying the second key, you're part Spirit Walker. Celestia was your grandmother on both sides. The royal family has been hiding Spirit Walker blood for generations. The revelation rippled through the room. Nobles gasped. Guards stared. Even Aldrich looked stunned. That's impossible, someone shouted. The royal family led the purges, Prithers. To hide their own nature, Elara said, the crown showing her centuries of deception, problems. They feared what would happen if the truth emerged, so they became the greatest persecutors to avoid suspicion. Lies. Seraphina made one last desperate attack, pouring all her stolen power into a spear of pure darkness aimed at Elara's heart. But the Void Crown's purpose was absolute. It absorbed the attack, then reflected it back transformed. Not darkness, but revealing light that showed Seraphina the truth of what she'd become, a hollow shell of hunger and hatred, forever empty, forever dying. The corrupted Spirit Walker's scream shattered what remained of the windows as the light unmade her, unraveling the dark power she'd woven into her very being. In seconds, only ash remained. Silence fell over the throne room. Then, slowly, Commander Aldrich knelt. The Shadow Court acknowledges the authority of the Void Crown, he said formally, and begs forgiveness for centuries of misguided persecution. Others began to kneel guards, nobles, even those who'd supported Seraphina moments before. But Elara barely noticed. The crown's power was overwhelming, showing her every truth in the kingdom simultaneously. She saw the hidden spirit walkers, the secret sympathizers, the complex web of fear and prejudice that had shaped generations. Elara? Fenris touched her arm, anchoring her to the present. Are you all right? I can see everything, she whispered. Every truth, every lie. How did your grandmother bear this? She didn't, he said gently. That's why she hid it. But you're stronger than she was. Power? You sacrificed your power willingly, proved yourself worthy. The crown chose you. I never wanted to be chosen. The best rulers never do. As dawn broke over the palace, illuminating the devastation and hope in equal measure, Elara understood the true weight of what had happened. She'd gained the power to reshape the kingdom, to reveal all truths and heal ancient wounds. But first, she had to decide what to do with the greatest truth of all, that the royal family itself carried the blood they'd taught others to fear. Change was coming to Lumenheart, and it would start with the truth. The Great Assembly had not convened in 50 years, but the kingdom's crisis demanded nothing less. Representatives from every noble house, every major guild, and every pack territory filled the ancient amphitheater. At its center stood Elara, the void crown still glowing on her brow, preparing to speak truths that would shatter their world. She's going to destroy us all, Lord Draven muttered from his seat among the nobles. The poison Grimshaw had used to control him was gone, cleansed by Elara's power, but fear remained. Revealing the royal family's spirit walker blood will cause civil war. Or set us free, Lord Wraith countered. He sat with the other revealed, forgotten, no longer hiding his silver-touched eyes. Secrets are chains, truth breaks them. Fenris stood beside the ancient speaker's stone, his presence commanding even without the crown. He'd insisted Elara take center stage, she who'd earned the right through sacrifice, not birth. But their joined hands showed the kingdom something new. Partnership, not hierarchy. People of Lumenheart, Elara began, her voice carrying to every corner through the crown's power. For centuries, we've lived in fear. Fear of difference, fear of power, fear of truth itself. Today, that ends. She raised her hand, and the air shimmered. Images formed, memories pulled from the spiritual realm, truths that couldn't be denied. Behold the first truth. Spirit walkers were never your enemy. We were your protectors, your healers, your guides between realms. Until fear twisted that purpose into something dark. The images showed the ancient days, spirit walkers and ordinary wolves working in harmony, building the kingdom together. Then came the corruption, the first dark spirit walker who'd fed on others, spreading terror that birthed the Shadow Court. The second truth. The purges began not from hatred, but from love corrupted by fear. King Aldrich watched his sister consumed by a corrupted spirit walker. In his grief, he couldn't see that we were victims too. He painted us all with the same brush, and generations paid the price. In his cresses, Wes, his cresses says, his cresses, enders. Gasps echoed as she showed Aldrich's memories, the young king weeping over his sister's drained body, swearing vengeance on all who carried the gift. The road to genocide paved with good intentions. The third truth, Elara continued, steel entering her voice. The royal family carries spirit walker blood. Kings and queens who ordered our deaths shared our heritage. They hid behind cruelty to mask their own nature. The amphitheater erupted. Nobles shouted accusations. Pack representatives demanded proof. Some called for Fenris's immediate abdication. Silence. The command rang with the Void Crown's authority, and every voice stilled. You want proof? Then see. She projected Fenris's bloodline, generations of hidden spirit walkers, carefully breeding to dilute the gift while maintaining royal power. The spiritual signatures were undeniable, written in the very essence of their beings. I stand before you as your king, Fenris said, stepping forward, and I am what you've been taught to fear. My grandmother was a full spirit walker. My mother carried the gift. I've hidden it all my life, terrified of your hatred. No more. No more. He let his power flow freely for the first time. Golden light emanated from him, not the silver of most spirit walkers, but the warm gold of the heart key, marking him as something unique. I am the bridge, he declared. Neither fully human nor fully spirit walker, but both, as are many of you. The void crown pulsed, and Elara saw the truth ripple through the crowd. 1 in 10 carried diluted spirit walker blood. 1 in 20 had enough to manifest minor gifts. They'd been hiding among themselves, fearing their neighbors, never knowing how many shared their secret. This is madness. A voice rose from the noble section. Lord Aldwin, whose family had profited from confiscated spirit walker lands. You cannot overturn centuries of law and tradition because of some magical crown. Then let us speak of law, Elara said, her voice carrying infinite patience and steel. By ancient law, the Void Crown's bearer speaks absolute truth. By that same law, truth supersedes all lesser claims. Challenge me if you dare, Lord Aldwin, but know that the crown will reveal every truth you've hidden. Aldwin paled, sitting quickly. Others shifted nervously, suddenly aware that their own secrets were vulnerable. But we need not rule through fear, Elara continued, softening her tone. I propose something different, a new covenant between all peoples of this land. She gestured, and Captain Thorne stepped forward, carrying documents. These are the restoration edicts. They dissolve the laws criminalizing spirit walker blood. They return confiscated lands. They establish healing centers where gifts can be trained safely. They create the Unity Guard, spirit walkers, and ordinary wolves working together as equals. And who will lead this new order? Someone called. You with your all-seeing crown? Another tyrant promising benevolence? The question hung in the air, and Elara felt the weight of temptation. The crown showed her how easy it would be one command, and they'd all kneel. She could reshape the kingdom in a day, force peace through absolute authority. Instead, she reached up and removed the void crown. Gasps echoed through the amphitheater. Even Fenris looked shocked. The crown served its purpose, Elara said, holding the circlet of starlight. It revealed truth, broke the chains of lies. But no one should hold this power indefinitely. It corrupts even the pure-hearted. What are you doing? Lord Wraith stood, alarm clear on his face. Without the crown's authority. Without the crown, I'm asking instead of commanding. I'm trusting instead of compelling. She turned to address the assembly. The truth is spoken. You've seen what was hidden. Now choose not because a magical artifact demands it, but because it's right. She set the crown on the speaker's stone. I propose the crown be sealed again, but differently this time. Let it remain here, in the heart of our democracy, to be used only when the kingdom faces deception too deep for ordinary means. Let 12 guardians, 6 spirit walkers, 6 ordinary wolves keep watch, ensuring it's never abused. And the kingship? Lord Draven asked. Do we maintain a monarchy built on lies? Fenris stepped forward. I offer to abdicate if the assembly wishes, but I prefer another path transformation. Let the king serve not as absolute ruler, but as mediator between communities. Let power flow from the people up, Not from the throne down. Pretty words. A pack representative snarled. But what of justice? My family died in the purges. My lands were stolen. My children hide their gifts in terror. Words won't restore the dead. Elara faced the wolf's pain directly. No, they won't. Nothing can. But we can ensure it never happens again. Purse. We can build a kingdom where your surviving children walk free. We can honor the dead by protecting the living. How? The wolf's voice cracked. How do we forgive generations of murder? We don't, Elara said simply. Forgiveness isn't mine to grant or demand, but we can choose to stop the cycle. We can choose a future where my daughter and yours play together without fear. You have no daughter, someone pointed out. Not yet. She glanced at Fenris, saw answering warmth in his eyes. But when I do, I want her to grow up in a kingdom that won't hate her for her blood. Don't you want the same? The assembly erupted in debate. Some shouted for revolution, others for tradition. But gradually, a third voice emerged, those calling for the middle path Elara proposed. I'll stand as guardian, Captain Thorne declared, moving to stand by the crown. I've seen what fear does to good people. Never again, quote. As will I, Lord Wraith added. The forgotten have hidden long enough. One by one, others stepped forward. Not just spirit walkers, but ordinary wolves who'd lost faith in the old ways. Guards who'd been forced to arrest innocents. Nobles who'd profited from injustice but wanted redemption. Even Commander Aldrich, representing the reformed Shadow Court, offered to serve. Then let us vote, Fenris said. All in favor of the restoration edicts and the new covenant? Hands rose throughout the amphitheater. Not all pockets of resistance remained, but far more than anyone had dared hope. The majority had chosen change over comfort, truth over tradition. But just as hope bloomed, warning bells rang from the palace. A messenger burst in, face white with terror. Your Majesties! The northern border, Lord Aldwin's brother, Duke Roderick, marches on the capital. He claims the throne by right of pure blood and demands the Spirit Walker plague be cleansed. Claims Duke Roderick, Aldwin's younger brother, who'd been conveniently absent from court. Elara's truth sight, even without the crown, recognized the pattern. Those who'd lost the political battle had chosen military rebellion. How many? Fenris demanded. 50,000. And growing. He's rallying every purge supporter, every displaced noble, everyone who fears the new order. They'll be here in 3 days. The assembly descended into panic. Their fragile coalition, minutes old, faced its first true test. Some called for the crown's power to stop the threat. Others demanded martial law. No, Elara said firmly. This is exactly what the old ways would do, meet force with force, fear with fear. We chose a different path. Then we'll die on principle? Lord Draven asked bitterly. No, we'll prove our way is stronger. She turned to the assembly. Duke Roderick brings soldiers. We'll bring citizens. He brings hatred. We'll bring hope. Every spirit walker who reveals themselves, every ordinary wolf who stands with them will show the kingdom which future we choose. You're asking people to make themselves targets, someone protested. I'm asking them to stop hiding. Elara's voice carried the weight of personal experience. I hid for 20 years. It saved my life but killed my soul. No more. I'll ride out to meet them, she declared. Not with armies, but with truth. Anyone who wishes to join me, come. Anyone who wishes to hide, I understand. But know this tomorrow. We decide not just who rules, but who we are as a people. Unsai. The amphitheater fell silent, processing the magnitude of her proposal. Meet an army with open hands. Fight hatred with vulnerability. Risk everything on the belief that truth was stronger than fear. You're mad, Lord Aldwin said. They'll slaughter you, perhaps. But if we die showing the kingdom another way is possible, our deaths might save countless others. If we hide behind walls and weapons, we prove Roderick right that only force matters. Fenris took her hand. Where you go, I follow. The king who hid his nature stands with those brave enough to show theirs. And the forgotten stand with our truth seer, Lord Wraith added. We've hidden long enough. One by one, voices joined them. Not everyone fear ran too deep for universal courage, but enough. Enough to matter. Enough to hope. As the assembly dispersed to prepare for what might be their last stand, Elara felt the weight of what she'd chosen. She could have kept the crown, used its power to crush opposition. Instead, she'd chosen the harder path, proving that truth and courage could triumph without magical compulsion. 3 days until Duke Roderick's army arrived. 3 days to show the kingdom that spirit walkers and ordinary wolves could stand together. 3 days to prevent a civil war that would drown the land in blood. No pressure, she muttered. Fenris squeezed her hand. Having second thoughts? Always. But that's what makes us human, isn't it? The doubt, the choice to act despite fear? Then let's be gloriously, terrifyingly human together. As night fell over Lumenheart, Elara prepared for the greatest gamble of her life. She'd sacrificed her power, refused the crown's authority, and now asked others to risk everything on an ideal. Tomorrow, they would march out to meet hatred with hope. And the kingdom would finally decide what mattered more, the comfort of old fears or the promise of new freedom. The sacrifice was made. Now came the test of whether it had been enough. Dawn broke blood red over the fields of reconciliation, where Duke Roderick's army faced the most unexpected force in the kingdom's history. 50,000 soldiers in battle formation confronted not another army, but a sea of citizens, spirit walkers and ordinary wolves standing together, armed only with truth and desperate courage. Elara stood at the front, no crown, no weapons, wearing simple clothes that bore the moon sign of her heritage. Beside her, Fenris had set aside royal regalia for the plain leathers of a common soldier. Behind them, thousands who'd answered the call, nobles beside servants, guards beside those they'd once arrested, children holding their parents' hands. Is this your army, pretender? Duke Roderick rode forward, his silver armor gleaming. He was everything Fenris, wasn't cruel where Fenris was kind, absolute where Fenris sought balance. Farmers and freaks, this is what you bring against steel and discipline? We bring something stronger, Elara replied, her voice carrying across the field through spiritcraft. Not magic, but the natural projection of truth. We bring the future. Roderick laughed. The future? I see only the past spirit walkers thinking they can bewitch their way to power. But Silver doesn't care about your tricks. He raised his hand, and his front lines lifted crossbows loaded with silver bolts. The crowd behind Elara stirred, fear rippling through their ranks. This was the moment. Would they run, proving Roderick right? Or stand, proving something greater? Before you fire, Elara said, look closely at your targets. Really look. She nodded to those behind her. One by one, spirit walkers began to glow not with aggression but with their true nature. Healers emanated soft green light. Seers shimmered with silver. Earth speakers made flowers bloom at their feet, each gift unique, beautiful, peaceful. But more importantly, ordinary wolves stepped forward to stand directly in front of their spirit walker neighbors. Shield siblings, they called themselves. Those without gifts, protecting those with them. You'll have to shoot through us first, Captain Thorn declared, placing himself before Helena. through loyal soldiers who choose conscience over commands. And us, called a voice from Roderick's own ranks. A soldier stepped out of formation, removing his helmet. I won't murder civilians. Not again, not for any lord's ambition. Traitor, Roderick snarled. But more soldiers followed. A trickle, then a stream. Men and women who'd joined for pay or pressure, but couldn't stomach slaughtering the defenseless. You see? Elara addressed the armies, not their leaders. This is the choice. Not between human and spirit walker, but between fear and hope, between the cycles of hatred and the possibility of peace. Enough! Roderick roared. Those who stand with abominations share their fate. Fire! Some obeyed. Silver bolts flew, and bodies fell, spirit walker and shield sibling alike. Blood watered the grass as screams rose. But something extraordinary happened. The crowd didn't flee. Instead, they surged forward, not to attack but to protect. Ordinary wolves threw themselves over wounded spirit walkers. Healers rushed into bolt fire to save any they could reach, regardless of which side they'd stood on. Power. The field became a canvas of sacrifice, each death proving the bonds between them were real. Stop, a voice commanded from within Roderick's ranks. Lord Aldwin himself rode through the lines. Stop this madness. Brother, you dare countermand me? I dare remember our father's teachings. Aldwin dismounted, removing his general's cloak. He taught us to protect the kingdom, not enable slaughter. I was wrong to profit from spirit walker suffering. I won't compound that sin with genocide. He walked across the field to where a spirit walker child lay wounded, protected by her ordinary wolf mother. Without hesitation, Aldwin knelt and began binding the wound with his own cloak. The symbolism shattered something in both armies. More soldiers broke ranks, some to flee, unable to process the reversal of everything they'd believed, others to help tend wounded regardless of their nature. But Roderick wouldn't relent. If armies won't serve, I'll finish this myself. Xiomara's. He drew a blade that reeked of wrongness, iron forged with corrupted spirit essence, designed to poison both body and soul. Spurring his horse, he charged directly at Elara. Fenris moved to intercept, but Elara caught his arm. No, this is my fight. You're unarmed. Am I? Roderick bore down on her, blade raised for a killing stroke. At the last moment, Elara sidestepped not with supernatural speed, but with the simple grace Thorn had taught her. The blade whistled past, and Roderick's momentum carried him beyond her. 20 years I hid, she said as he wheeled for another charge. 20 years I was taught to be ashamed, afraid, less than human. But hiding didn't protect me. Fear didn't save me. Only truth did. Roderick charged again. This time she didn't dodge. Instead she caught his blade hand, not with strength but with perfect timing, redirecting his force as power. The corrupted sword flew from his grip, landing in the mud. You want to know the real difference between us? She faced him as he dismounted, drawing a regular sword. You fight from fear. I fight from love. They danced across the bloodied grass, Roderick with decades of training, Elara with weeks but deeper purpose. Each time he struck to kill, she moved to disable. Each time he pressed with hatred, she responded with determination. Why won't you die? He snarled, frustration mounting as she continued to evade his increasingly wild attacks. Because I have something to live for. She gestured to the field around them, where former enemies worked together to save lives. Look what they're building. Look what you're trying to destroy. Corruption, weakness, strength, she corrected. The strength to change, to grow, to choose love over fear. The strength you never found. Roderick screamed and lunged, But his rage made him sloppy, and Elara had learned from the best. She flowed aside, and his own momentum sent him stumbling. Before he could recover, she struck not with a blade, but with her palm against his spiritual center. For one moment, she opened her gift fully and showed him the truth. Not the lies he'd told himself about Spirit Walker evil, but the reality: children afraid of their own gifts, families torn apart, centuries of unnecessary suffering, and underneath his hatred, his own fear of being powerless, irrelevant, unloved. Roderick collapsed, not from physical wounds, but from the weight of understanding. Tears streamed down his face as he truly saw what he'd done, what he'd become. "Kill me," he whispered. "I've earned it." "No." Elara helped him stand. "You'll live. You'll remember. And maybe, someday, you'll help heal what you tried to destroy." Across the field, the battle had transformed into something else entirely. Soldiers from both sides worked together, saving who they could. Spirit walkers healed former enemies. Ordinary wolves defended former targets. The arbitrary lines that had divided them blurred beyond recognition. "The kingdom watches," Lord Wraith observed. He'd organized runners to carry word to every corner of the land. "By sunset, everyone will know what happened here." And they did. The Battle of Reconciliation. They'd call it not for the fighting, but for what came after. When faced with the choice between perpetuating violence or embracing compassion, enough chose compassion to matter. But the cost was real. Hundreds lay dead, martyrs to fear and heroes of hope alike. As Elara moved among them, using what remained of her gift to ease passing and heal the salvageable, she felt each loss like a personal failure. "You can't save everyone," Fenris said gently, finding her cradling a young shield sibling who'd taken a bolt meant for a spirit walker child. "I know, but I'll mourn everyone I couldn't." She closed the girl's eyes. She was maybe 16, had her whole life ahead. And she chose how to spend it, protecting someone who needed it. That's not a waste, that's a legacy. As the sun set over the field, painting the sky in shades of hope and sorrow, something fundamental had shifted. The kingdom had seen spirit walkers die to protect ordinary wolves, and ordinary wolves die to protect spirit walkers. The lie of separation had been exposed. "What now?" Captain Thorne asked, approaching with a mixed group of former enemies now working as one unit. "Now we go home," Elara said. "We tend our wounded, we bury our dead, and we build the kingdom they died believing in. The nobles who fled won't accept this, neither will the hardline purists. Then we'll face them when they come. Power, but not with armies." She looked across the field where former enemies shared water, bound wounds, grieved together. "We'll face them with this proof that another way exists." As they prepared to return to Lumenheart, a young spirit walker approached nervously. She couldn't have been more than 12. Her gift manifesting as tiny flowers that bloomed wherever she stepped. "Lady Elara? Will it really be different now? Will we really be safe?" Elara knelt to the girl's level, seeing herself at that age afraid, alone, convinced her gift made her wrong. "I can't promise safety. The world's too complicated for that. But I can promise you'll never have to hide who you are. You'll never have to be ashamed of your gift, and you'll never be alone." The girl smiled, flowers blooming brighter around her feet. "That's enough." As the survivors began the long walk home, Elara felt the truth of those words. Not safety, change was never safe. But identity, community, hope, sometimes that was enough to reshape a kingdom. The great reversal was complete. Those who'd marched as enemies returned as allies. Those who'd hidden in shame walked openly. And at the heart of it all, a truth seer who'd chosen compassion over power, led them toward a future none had dared imagine. The revolution hadn't come through force, but through radical vulnerability. And in showing their true selves, they'd shown the kingdom, its true face, not divided between human and spirit walker, but united in the choice between fear and love. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, under stars that blessed spirit walker and ordinary wolf alike, they'd proven change was possible. One choice, one truth, one act of courage at a time. The ancient vault beneath the Moonvale ruins had been sealed for 3 centuries, waiting for the blood of its makers to return. Elara pressed her palm against the crystalline door, feeling her heritage sing in response. Behind her, Fenris and a small group of their most trusted allies watched as silver light spread from her touch, awakening protections older than the kingdom itself. "Your mother came here once," Elder Thessa said quietly. The old wolf had emerged from hiding after the Battle of Reconciliation, one of the few who remembered the time before the purges. "The night before she died. She was pregnant with you, desperate to understand why the Shadow Court wanted her bloodline erased." The door dissolved like morning mist, revealing a chamber that took Elara's breath away. The walls were living crystal, pulsing with stored memories. At the center stood a pool of liquid starlight, a scrying mirror created by the first truth seers to preserve knowledge across generations. "By the ancient powers," Lord Wraith whispered, "the repository of truth. I thought it was a legend. All legends have roots in truth." Elara approached the pool, her reflection wavering in its surface. "The question is, are we ready for what it might show?" 2 weeks had passed since the battle. The kingdom struggled to adjust to its new reality. Spirit walkers walking openly, the Unity Guard protecting all citizens equally, healing centers replacing execution grounds. But questions remained. Why had the persecution begun? What was special about the Moonvale line? And most pressingly, why were Spirit Walkers' gifts fading? It had started subtly, healers finding their touch less potent, seers struggling to glimpse beyond the veil. Even Elara felt it, a dimming of the inner light that had always guided her. "Show us," she commanded the pool. "Show us the truth of our heritage." The starlight swirled, and images rose from its depths. 1,000 years ago, when the world was younger and the veils between realms thinner, the first spirit walkers weren't random mutations but chosen guardians, blessed by entities from beyond the physical plane to maintain balance between worlds. The Moonvale line weren't just truth seers, they were the covenant holders, bound by blood and oath, to ensure the pact between realms remained stable. "Look," Helena pointed as the images shifted. "That symbol, it's the same as the Void Crown's center stone." They watched their ancestors work alongside beings of pure spirit, learning to walk between worlds, to heal tears in reality's fabric, to guard against incursions from darker realms. But power corrupted, as it always did. Some spirit walkers began demanding worship, setting themselves up as gods among ordinary wolves. "The first schism," Elder Thessa murmured, "when the guardians split between those who served and those who ruled." The war that followed nearly tore both realms apart. In desperation, the Moonvale Truthseers created the Void Crown not as a weapon but as a reset button. The corruption spread too far. If the balance tilted beyond recovery, the crown could sever the connection between realms entirely. Problem sever? Fenris caught the implications immediately. "You mean, cut spirit walkers off from the source of their power?" Elara finished, understanding flooding through her. Quote, "That's what's happening now. When I used the crown to stop Seraphina, I inadvertently began the severance. Our gifts are fading because our connection to the spirit realm is closing." Horrified murmurs rippled through the group. After everything they'd fought for, To lose their gifts now seemed the cruelest irony. But the pool wasn't finished. New images rose the last truth seer before Elara's mother, standing in this very chamber, recording a final message. To my descendant who finds this, the severance is not a curse but a choice. For too long, we've depended on power from beyond instead of finding strength within. The gifts were meant to be training wheels, not permanent crutches. Connection fades. We'll discover what we truly are, not spirit walkers or ordinary wolves, but simply people, capable of extraordinary things through ordinary means. Most werewolf stories begin with power and face. Most werewolf stories begin with capable of extraordinary means. Most werewolf stories begin with capable of extraordinary means. Most werewolf stories begin with capable of. She's saying we were always meant to lose our powers? Powers story. Mira's replacement, young Senna, looked stricken. Then what was the point? The point, Elara said slowly, was to learn. To understand that healing comes from compassion, not magic. That truth matters more than the power to compel it. That unity isn't about gifts but about choice. Xiomara's? Pretty philosophy, Lord Wraith said bitterly, his silver eyes already dimming. But without our gifts, we're just targets. The prejudice won't vanish because our power does. Won't it? Elara turned to face them all. Our gifts made us different, easy to other. Without them, what excuse will they have? We'll be proof that spirit walkers were never the threat fear was. The pool swirled again, showing one final vision a choice. The severance could be reversed but at a cost. Reopening the connection fully would restore their gifts, but also risk the corruption that had nearly destroyed both realms before. Or, they could complete the severance, becoming fully mortal but finally free. This is why the Moonvale line was hunted. Pow, Elder Thessa said. You don't just carry the truth, you carry the choice. The power to decide for all spirit walkers everywhere. Power, pow, power, pow, power, 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 power. I won't decide alone, Elara said firmly. This affects everyone. We'll call a gathering, explain what we've learned, and vote. Every spirit walker, every ordinary wolf who stands with us. The kingdom will choose its future together. And if they choose to restore the connection? Fenris asked. If they vote to keep their powers despite the risk? Elara met his eyes, seeing her own fears reflected there. Then we'll face that future together. But they deserve to choose with full knowledge, not have the decision made for them. As they prepared to leave, the pool offered one last gift, a memory of Elara's mother, standing pregnant in this very spot, speaking to the daughter she'd never meet. My little moon child, I don't know what world you'll inherit, but I know you'll have the strength to shape it. The truth isn't always comfortable, but it's always necessary. Be brave, my love. The kingdom needs your light, whether it comes from magic or from within. Tears streamed down Elara's face as the image faded. All her life, she'd wondered if her mother would be proud. Now she knew. 3 days, she announced as they emerged from the vault. In 3 days we gather everyone. Spirit walker, an ordinary wolf, noble and commoner. We'll share the truth and let them decide power with peril, or mortality with peace. What do you hope they'll choose? Senna asked quietly. Elara looked at her hands, hands that had channeled silver light, healed wounds, revealed truths. Soon, they might be merely human hands. The thought should terrify her, but instead, she felt a strange peace. I hope they choose freedom, she said, whatever form it takes. As they returned to Lumenheart, word spread quickly. The truth seer had discovered their origins. The choice that would define their species awaited. Some panicked at the thought of losing their gifts. Others saw it as liberation from centuries of being marked as different. But in the palace that night, as Elara and Fenris stood on their balcony watching the city below, a different truth emerged. "You already know how the vote will go," he said. "It wasn't a question. The young will vote to keep their powers. They've fought too hard for acceptance to give up what makes them unique. Old will vote for severance. Tired of carrying the burden, it'll be close. And the deciding vote?" She smiled sadly. "Will be mine, won't it? The last truth seer, casting the final truth. Container, container 1, container 2, container. What will you choose?" Instead of answering directly, she took his hand. "Did you know that in all the visions, all the memories, I never saw a spirit walker and ordinary wolf have children together? The gifts don't mix. We've been separate species pretending at unity." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "But if the severance completes, we become one people, truly one. No more divisions, no more fear of what gifts a child might manifest." She touched her stomach gently. "Our children won't have to choose between their parents' worlds. NES. You're too early to be certain, but I feel the truth of it." She leaned into his warmth. "I want our child to grow up in a world where they're judged by their choices, not their blood. Don't you?" He pulled her close, and she felt his answer in the way he held her, protective, supportive, already loving a future that might never need the gifts they were about to lose. The die was cast. In 3 days, the kingdom would vote. But Elara already knew how the story would end, not with the triumph of power, but with the victory of possibility. The greatest magic, after all, was the courage to be merely human. And in that magic, everyone was equal. The grand convergence drew every soul in the kingdom who could walk, ride, or crawl to witness history. The ancient Heartstone amphitheater overflowed with citizens, spirit walkers glowing with what might be their last light, ordinary wolves standing shoulder to shoulder with those they'd once feared, children perched on parents' shoulders to see over the crowd. At the center, Elara stood before the celestial basin, where the ritual would be performed regardless of the vote's outcome. The void crown rested on a pedestal beside her, dormant but waiting. Fenris stood with the other witnesses, Lord Wraith, Captain Thorn, Elder Thessa, and surprisingly, Duke Roderick, who'd spent the week since his defeat, working tirelessly to undo the harm he'd caused. "Citizens of Lumenheart," Elara began, her voice carrying to every corner through acoustic design rather than magic. "We gather to decide not just our future, but our very nature. You've heard the truth, our gifts come from beyond this realm, a connection that brings both wonder and peril. Today, we choose." She gestured to 2 massive urns. White stones for severance to become fully mortal, free from the burden and blessing of spirit walking. Black stones to maintain the connection, keeping our gifts but accepting the risk of corruption returning. "Before we vote," Elder Thessa stepped forward, "let all hear the testimonies." What followed were hours of heartfelt speeches. Healers spoke of lives saved through spirit touch. Ordinary wolves testified about loved ones lost to corrupted spirit walkers. Children demonstrated gifts of beauty and wonder. Veterans showed scars from the wars such gifts had sparked. Young Senna, trembling but determined, shared how her empathic gift had helped her save 3 people from ending their own lives. "Without it, I couldn't have felt their pain in time. But with it, I'll never know if people like me for myself, or because I unconsciously ease their emotions." Duke Roderick spoke last among the testimonies. "I spent my life hating what I didn't understand. Power was Never's. But these weeks, working alongside spirit walkers to rebuild what I destroyed, I've learned something. The power was never the problem. Fear was. Fear of difference, fear of being lesser, fear of change itself. He looked directly at Elara. I vote for whatever brings us together as one people. Percent. The form matters less than the unity. As the sun reached its zenith, the voting began. One by one, citizens approached the urns, casting their stones with the weight of destiny. Some wept as they voted, others walked with firm conviction. All understood they were choosing for generations unborn. Elara voted last, her white stone clicking against thousands of others presented. The counting would take hours, but she already felt the realm's spiritual current shifting, responding to the collective will being expressed. As scribes tallied votes under careful observation, an unexpected interruption arose. The sky darkened despite the cloudless day, and figures materialized at the amphitheater's edge, beings of pure spirit, the original entities who'd granted the first gifts, truth seer of Moonvale. Their leader spoke directly into minds rather than ears. You would sever what we forged in good faith? Elara stepped forward, unafraid. With respect, ancient ones. The compact has run its course. What began as partnership became dependence, then division. We thank you for the gifts, but we must find our own way now. Without us, you are merely mortal, weak, limited, quote. Without you, we are united, free, whole. She gestured to the crowd, where spirit walkers and ordinary wolves stood interlinked. Look what we've built despite the division. Imagine what we might achieve as one people, pies. The spirits conferred among themselves, their forms flickering with otherworldly light. Finally, their leader spoke again. We see wisdom in your words, though it pains us. If this is your will, we offer a final gift, not power, but knowledge. The healing techniques, the truth sensing, the communion with nature, these need not die with the connection. What was learned through spirit can be taught through study. Gasps rippled through the crowd. They were offering to preserve the practical benefits of gifts through ordinary means, healing becoming medicine, truth sensing becoming psychology, nature speaking becoming ecology. We accept with gratitude. Elara bowed deeply. And we hope that someday, when we've grown wise enough, we might meet again as equals rather than dependents. The spirits faded with what might have been approval, leaving behind crystalline books that would later revolutionize education and science in the kingdom. As sunset approached, the final tally was announced. By a margin of merely 17 votes, out of tens of thousands, the kingdom had chosen severance. The reaction was mixed, tears of loss from some, sighs of relief from others, but overall, a sense of profound change accepted. Tired. Will you perform the ritual? Fenris asked Elara quietly. You don't have to. We could find another way. No. She touched her stomach where new life grew. I want our child to inherit a world shaped by choice, not chance. I'll do it. The ritual itself was surprisingly simple. Elara placed the void crown on her head one final time, feeling its power respond to her will. But instead of using it to command or compel, she offered it as a conduit for the kingdom's collective decision. By the will of the people, by the truth of our choice, by the hope of our unity, I complete what was begun. The connection closes. The gifts fade. But what we've learned remains. What we've built endures. We step forward together, no longer divided by power but united in purpose. Light exploded from the crown, not harsh but gentle, like sunset rather than lightning. It washed over the crowd in waves, and with each wave, the glowing auras of spirit walkers dimmed. Some cried out in loss, others breathed sighs of relief. All felt the profound shift as the spiritual connection that had defined them for millennia, gently, irrevocably closed. Elara removed the crown for the last time, and as she did, It crumbled to dust. Its purpose, first to protect, then to reveal, finally to transform, was complete. "It's done," she said simply. The crowd stood in stunned silence, processing the magnitude of change. Then, young Senna, no longer an empath but still deeply intuitive, began to clap. Others joined, and soon the amphitheater thundered with applause, not for what they'd been, but for what they might become. In the days that followed, the transformation was remarkable. Former spirit walkers discovered that while their supernatural abilities were gone, the knowledge remained. Healers who channeled spirit energy found they could achieve similar results through herbs and technique. Seers, who'd glimpsed the future, learned to read patterns and probability. The Unity Guard evolved from magical peacekeepers to skilled investigators and mediators. The healing centers became schools where former gifts were studied and systematized. Within a month, they'd developed treatments for ailments that had plagued ordinary wolves for centuries. The truth-sensing techniques of the Moonvale line became the foundation for a new justice system based on evidence and understanding rather than assumption. But the greatest change was in the people themselves. Without the easy excuse of different blood, prejudices crumbled. Former spirit walkers and ordinary wolves intermarried freely. Children grew up never knowing the fear of manifesting a gift that would mark them as other. On the winter solstice, Elara gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl, who would never know the burden of supernatural gifts, but would inherit something far greater, a kingdom where they could be anything they chose to be. "Do you regret it?" Fenris asked one night as they watched their children sleep. "The power you gave up?" Elara considered the question, thinking of the silver light that had once flowed through her, the truth she could compel with a touch. Then she looked at the books former spirit walkers were writing, preserving their knowledge for future generations. She thought of the former enemies now working together, the children playing without fear, the kingdom healing from centuries of division. "I traded power for possibility," she said finally. "Certainty for hope, control for connection." She smiled, remembering her mother's words. I think I got the better bargain." As snow began to fall outside, blanketing Lumenheart in peaceful white, the kingdom slept soundly. Not divided between gifted and ordinary, not torn between fear and power, but united in the simple, profound truth that they were all, in the end, just people. The last truth seer had spoken her final truth, that the greatest magic was the courage to be merely, wonderfully, hopefully human. And in that truth, a kingdom was not just transformed but reborn. Years later, when bards sang of the Great Transformation, they spoke not of the powers lost but of the unity gained. They told of Elara the Wise, who chose mortality over might, and Fenris the Just, who helped build a kingdom where bloodline mattered less than character. But the true legacy lived in the children who grew up free from fear, in the books that preserved wisdom across generations, in the simple fact that a person could walk anywhere in the kingdom and be judged not by their blood, but by their deeds. The age of spirit walkers had ended. The age of choice had begun. And in that choice, they found a magic greater than any gift from beyond, the magic of becoming fully, truly, simply themselves. The stepfamily that had banished Elara, thinking her worthless, they lived to see her crowned not as a spirit walker, but as a woman who'd united a kingdom. Their jealousy had set in motion. The very events that proved her worth had nothing to do with power and everything to do with wisdom. Sometimes, the greatest transformations begin with the cruelest rejections, and sometimes, hiding your true self is just preparation for the moment when revealing it changes the world. In the end, Elara hadn't just been found and crowned by the Alpha King. She'd found and crowned herself, and in doing so, had helped an entire kingdom do the same. The transformation was complete. The story, in all the ways that mattered, had found its perfect ending not in power reclaimed, but in humanity, embraced, not in gifts restored, but in unity achieved. And they all, in their own ways, lived ever after.